user interaction with your program is kind of a two-sided coin, because on one hand, last time we learned how to print things to the console as output for the user to see information about the program. But on the other hand, the user needs a way to give the computer program information. So today we're going to be learning about the simplest way to take in user input and let the user send in information and control the program while it's running. Back in the day, like we talked about last time, they would physically print out the output of a program to paper, and the earliest computers also used paper for input. You can see in this picture a picture of the Jacquard machine, and this was one of the earliest computers that was meant to run automated looms for weaving material. And you can see all these patterns of holes. Every hole was a different, you could think of it like a different bit that's coding for the pattern on this weave. And so depending on the pattern and the placement of these holes, the machine would weave a different pattern on the material. So in Java, fortunately we don't use punch cards anymore. Instead we can use the keyboard. And the simplest method to do this in Java is called the scanner. The scanner is a class that's designed just to let users input things through the keyboard. So I'm going to walk you through using the scanner in this lesson in Eclipse. Let's open up Eclipse and start by importing the scanner class. I'll get rid of the code from the last lesson. And right up here, we're going to import the scanner class with import java.util, which stands for utilities, java.util.Scanner. Now in our main method here, oh whoops, I deleted our main method. There, we'll fix that. Make sure to capitalize the S on scanner. Okay, now in our main method, we need to create a scanner object. So we can do that with scanner, and then name your scanner. I'm just going to name mine S because it's a short and simple name. Scanner S equals new scanner. And then inside these parentheses, you write System.in. And that creates our scanner object. Now, we're not actually taking user input yet, but this sets us up to be able to do it. So the next thing we need to do, if you look down here, after we've created our scanner object, is to print a prompt to the console so the user knows what they're going to type. So in this case, we're going to make a simple thing. Down here you can see the end result that asks what the user's name is. When they type their name, it'll then respond with a personalized greeting. So let's print out the prompt, and this is just a simple print statement like we learned last time. And if we run this so far, all it's going to do is print out this prompt. So the next thing we need to do is take in the user input. And let's go back to the tutorial here, and you can see that the way we do that is, first of all, we need a string variable. So that's what this is. This is a string variable called name. And then we call this method from the object we've created. So in this case, it's this scanner object called S. But the method is the nextLine. So let's write that out. First of all, let's make a string variable called name. And we're going to set that equal to S, because that's the name of our scanner object, s.nextLine. And what that's doing is it tells the scanner object to look in the console for the next line that's input that's written by the user. So the whole line of text. So now, if we run it, we can say, what is your name? And then it'll also have a line right after this where we can type in an answer. But if we push enter, it won't do anything yet because we don't have code that will do anything with that name. So let's go back and look at how we can use this. The next step is we've already stored the user's input in this variable. So all we have to do is in our output code, use this variable. So in this case, we concatenate, if you remember from the last lesson, we concatenate this variable name into a sentence. Hello, and then whatever their name is, it's good to meet you. So let's write that out in Eclipse. And if we did anything right, it should work exactly like we intended to. So it asks us what our name is. I'll type in Robert. And when I hit enter, it says, hello Robert, it's good to meet you. Now, this is a really powerful way to get user input because you can get any kind of input. It doesn't have to be, in this case, we just read in whatever the whole line was. And you can see if I run this again and I type in a whole line of text, it will just take that as my name and put that in. But we can also read things like numbers. And so this next little bit explains how to take in different kinds of data with the scanner object. And this chart is from this W3 Schools website. If you want to learn a little bit more, I encourage you to go to the website and browse a little bit about the scanner. But this shows different methods for getting different kinds of data. And you'll notice that each of these corresponds to one of the primitive data types that we learned about in the variables lesson. So next Boolean will look for a Boolean response. Next byte will look for a single byte response. Next int will look for an integer response. So let's try using one of those instead of a string. And all we have to do, I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to delete everything except our scanner object. And then here, I'm going to try taking in an integer variable. So I'm going to write an int variable. And then I'm going to set that equal to s dot. And then instead of using nextLine, I'm going to use nextInt. And then I'm just going to print out the integer that the user enters. All right, and in this case, I didn't ask for a prompt, so I just know automatically that I need to type in my number. And you see it grabbed that number and printed it out again. Now, what makes this so unique from the previous method that we were using that was just nextLine is that grabbed the whole line of text that the user input, and this just looks for the next integer. So we could try running this again, and instead of typing in just 4, I could type in 4 and then just a random word, and when I hit enter, it only grabbed the first integer it saw, and it ignored everything after that. So that's nicer if you're looking for a specific kind of input from the user. Now let's take a look at the exercise in this lesson. And in this exercise, we're going to make something that actually could be kind of useful. In this case, it's a calculator. It's a simple calculator that just adds two numbers. So we're going to go back and right here, I'm going to delete everything inside the main method. So we're going to start by asking for the prompt for the first number. And as you can see here, we can even just copy this prompt right out of the example. And we'll say System.out.println, input your first number. And then we need to take user input, so right up here, I'm going to create a scanner object because I deleted my last one. And then right after that, I'm going to store that first number in a variable. And because we're adding numbers and I want to be able to add decimal numbers, it's going to be a double variable. So that'll take in the first bit of input, and then next we can just basically copy this and change a few things for the second number. And that'll take in both numbers as input. And then last of all, we need to print out the sum of those two numbers. So we'll write a print statement. And then here inside this print statement, we're just going to print out both these numbers added together. Now you can do that with by adding the plus sign in between any two numbers or variables. And unlike last time, because these are two number variables, it's not going to add them together like strings. It's going to add them together like numbers. So let's try this out. Let's put in our first number 2 and our second number as 4. And it adds the two numbers together and it prints them out. It prints out the sum of the two right there. And we could even get a little fancier if we wanted to. We could, I'm going to move these up to a variable right here called answer. And then down here, we could concatenate together a little message that says your answer is. Let's see what it is in, yep, your answer is. That's what it says in the example. And then we can concatenate that with the answer variable. Now let's run that one more time. And let's add together 6 and 7 this time. And it prints out your answer is 13, just like we expected. So that's an overview of how to get user input using the scanner class in Java. And you can play around with this and try getting input for all kinds of different data. You can get Boolean input, integer input like we've done, double input, long input. And you can use this in really powerful ways. You could make whole text-based games off of this where the user inputs a number to select an action, and then based off that action, the program does something different. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next lesson.